In the summer of 1996, two college students in Kentwich, Washington, stumbled on a human skull along the Columbia River. Scientists sent the bone samples to a lab, where they confirmed that the bone sample was 9,200 years old, which means that this was one of the oldest skeletons in the American history. This skull was called the Kentwich Man. Based on the information obtained, archaeologists, journalists, and citizens began framing theories about the origins of the first inhabitants in America. Was someone here before the Native Americans? Archaeologists believe that the first Native Americans arrived between the final part of the Pleistocene, 20,000 years ago. They believe that Native Americans walked through the ice-free pathway southward onto the Great Plains. The relationship between the U.S. government and the American Indian during the 19th century was based on assimilation, boarding schools, reservations, and the general dislike of American government because Native Americans do not show no loyalty to the United States as the government wished. The U.S. government made Indians stop passing their traits to youngest generations by assimilating them in boarding schools. Children alienated from their families began to lose their language and their cultures during their stay at these nations. Unable to perform ceremonies and traditions in native tongues, a slow loss of traditions and identity became inevitable. Indians were deprived of much of their lands. To avoid removal, tribal communities showed progress of assimilation by becoming Christian, changing their appearance, and attending Western schools, and abandoning traditional hunting practice in favor of farming. One way that they decided to also assimilate was by cutting their hair and by women wearing American clothes instead of their traditional dress. One of the laws passed by the government to make Indians assimilate into society and as citizens was called the Dennisse Act, which was passed in the 1887. This act was used to break the Indians' mask, but in fact it was a disaster for the Indian community because Indians lost their holdings of property. This act was also a way to protect the property rights of Native Americans Indians, but the provision of the law was organized in such a way that the tribe members would be assimilated and integrated into American society and culture. But the consequences before the Dennisse Act, 150 billion lands remained in Indians' hands, and within 20 years, two-thirds of their land was gone. The reservation system was nearly destroyed, and many elements of Native American tribal culture disappeared due to the Dennisse Act. The United States government attempted to forcibly integrate and assimilate the native Indians into American culture and society was ultimately a failure. The assimilation only led to increased conflict between the American Indians and Americans. It destroyed American Indian cultures and traditions. It destroyed their religions and their beliefs, and it also destroyed their families and their traditions.